Today we're going to look at the 3 Series that's been at the core of BMW's identity for decades, and its wild track-bred sibling, the M3. So grab a snack, get comfy, because here's everything you need to know about the 3 Series and the M3s. The story begins way back in 1975 with its first generation, the E21. It laid the distinctive foundation for an unprecedented success story, bringing that signature driving experience to the premium midsize class. It wasn't about massive power yet. It was about balance, with engines ranging from 75 horsepower to 143, establishing the core philosophy of agility paired with sport-oriented refinement. It essentially established the formula, a small, luxurious car focused heavily on the driver. But honestly, while the E21 started the party, it was the next one that became a global icon. Then came the second generation, the one everyone talks about, the E30, built from 1983 to 1991. This is arguably the most famous and the longest-running generation. When you talk to old-school fans, they bring up the E30 like it's a family member, and for good reason. Models like the popular 325i had the M20 inline-six engine, specifically the M20B25, which delivered around 168 to 170 horsepower. This was smooth, high-revving power that made the light chassis feel even more alive. But the most legendary E30 wasn't just a 3 Series. It was the birth of the M3. The first ever M3 wasn't primarily built for the road, it was built for racing. Specifically, it was a homologation special for the DTM Racing Series during the late 80s and early 90s. BMW comprehensively reworked the base car just to battle it out with rivals like Ford, Audi, and most importantly, Mercedes. This rivalry was intense. Both the M3 and the Mercedes 190e were consistent favorites, constantly duking it out on the track and producing incredible road-going versions like the M3 Sport Evolution. Under the hood nestled a high-revving 2.3-liter 4-cylinder engine. It wasn't the biggest or the most potent engine, but its brilliance lay in its responsiveness and an almost insatiable appetite for revs. Initially producing around 200 horsepower, later evolutions reached up to 238 and came with a get-rag 5-speed manual for those quick and precise shifts. Sales figures of the M3 far exceeded the initial 5,000 unit requirement, cementing its place as an automotive icon. It's the underdog that overachieved, a symbol of BMW's unwavering pursuit of motorsport excellence. So, how do you follow up a legend without losing what made it special? The answer was the E36, and they nailed it. It hit the market in 1990 and was an instant hit. Under the hood is where it gets really interesting. The engine options were all over the place, from a tiny 1.6-liter 4-cylinder in the 316 to the beastly inline-sixes. The real sweet spot for me, and probably everyone else, was the 6-cylinder models. The 325 this time came with the M50 engine, a 2.5-liter inline-six that put out about 192 horsepower. It was smooth, it loved to rev, and it had a fantastic sound. But of course, the real king of the hill was the M3. This car is the stuff of legends. In Europe, it came with a high-revving 3-liter S50 inline-six that made 286 horsepower. Later, in 1995, they upgraded it to a 3.2-liter S50 B32 with an incredible 321 horses. Can you imagine that? A car from the 90s with over 300 horsepower from a naturally aspirated 6-cylinder. Now, here's a sore spot for the American enthusiasts. The US got a watered-down version with a less powerful engine. The 1995 model had a 3-liter engine with 240 horsepower, and the later 3.2-liter S52 upgrade again had the same horsepower of 240, but with increased torque figures. It was still a fantastic car, with that amazing handling and a near-perfect 50-50 weight distribution, but it was a bit of a letdown for performance purists. Still, even the nerfed US version was a force to be reckoned with. Introduced in 1997, it took everything great about the E36 and cranked it up to 11. You know that timeless clean look that just works? That's the E46. It came in so many flavors too: sedan, coupe, convertible, wagon, called a touring, and even a hatchback. It had a massive lineup of engines, from 4 cylinders to the straight 6s. For the US market, the most beloved were the M52TU and M54 inline-six. You had the 323 and 328, which later became the 325 and the 330 with the M54. I think the 330 with its 225 horsepower M54 engine is the sweet spot. It's got the power, the sound, and the reliability without any specific maintenance demands. Plus, you could get a 6-speed manual in some of the later models, which is just pure joy. And then, of course, there's the big boy, the M3. This thing came with the legendary S54 straight-six engine. We're talking 333 horsepower with an 8,000 RPM redline and a 0 to 60 in just 4.8 seconds. It's a proper race engine in a road car, and it sounds absolutely insane. BMW also offered a unique sequential manual gearbox, SMG2, on it. But let's just say people usually preferred the traditional manual. The 5th generation, the E90, introduced in 2005, marked a massive philosophical shift in the 3 Series history. You see, this was the last time we saw the pure, naturally aspirated 3-liter inline-six in base models like the 328. The real game changer was the 335, which introduced the infamous, the fantastic, and the frustrating twin-turbo N54 engine. It produced 300 horses stock and fundamentally redefined performance, offering massive power potential. The N54 is an absolute legend in the tuning community, known for having massive performance headroom. And then there's the M3. Oh man, the E90 M3. This was the one that broke from tradition. Instead of an inline-six, it packed a naturally aspirated 4-liter V8, the first V8 ever to power a production M3. With 414 horsepower and a redline of 8,000 RPM, it was a proper race car for the road. The sound alone was worth the price of admission. It was an absolute symphony. It could do the 0 to 60 sprints in just 4.6 to 4.9 seconds, depending on the transmission. It really solidified BMW's reputation for building ultimate driving machines. The F30, introduced in 2011, was a big deal. Why? Well, it was the first 3 Series to go all in on turbocharging, ditching the legendary naturally aspirated inline-sixes that we all adored. The engine lineup was a true mixed bag. The early F30s, like the 328, came with the N20 turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder. Now, this was a controversial move. A 4-cylinder in a 328? But it was actually faster than the old 6-cylinder 330 it replaced, pushing out 240 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. It hit 60 miles per hour in just 5.4 seconds, which is seriously quick for an entry-level sports sedan. Then you had the big dog, the 335 with the incredible N55 turbocharged inline-six. This thing was a legend in its own right, making 300 horsepower and 300 pound-feet of torque, with a 0 to 60 time of around 5.1 seconds. The M3 version of the F30, called the F80, came out in 2014. And let me tell you, it was a totally different beast. Under the hood, it packed the twin turbocharged S55 B30 inline-six. That's a 3-liter straight six, with 2 mono-scroll turbos to be exact. BMW had to get with the times, with all the stricter emissions and efficiency regulations. The base model started with 425 horsepower and a massive 406 pound-feet of torque, a huge jump in torque over the old V8. While the sound might not have been as soulful as the V8, that instantaneous, neck-snapping acceleration was an absolute thrill. You could get it with a 6-speed manual transmission or the super slick 7-speed DCT. And the performance figures? With the DCT, it would sprint to 60 in just 4.1 seconds, with some magazines even clocking it as low as 3.8 seconds. At a quarter mile, you're looking at around 12 seconds flat. That was seriously fast for a 4-door sedan. We finally arrive at the current generation, the G20, and while the world has changed, the 3 Series is still fundamentally brilliant. Now under the hood, you've got a range of engines. For the entry-level models, you've got the 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, the B48, which is a punchy little thing. It's not a powerhouse, but it gets the job done. But for the real enthusiasts, the one you want is the 340, which comes with the B58 engine. It's a 3-liter inline-six with a single twin-scroll turbo, and it pumps out around 382 horsepower. It was received incredibly well in the market and competes head-to-head with cars like the A4, the C-Class, and the Alfa Romeo Giulia. Now, let's talk about the big brother, the M3 version, the G80. The moment it was revealed, the world was divided. You know exactly what I'm talking about, that grille. It was a massive departure from the traditional kidney grills, and it sparked an endless debates online. Here's what I think. Love it or hate it, it's bold, and it makes the G80 instantly recognizable. But styling aside, it's a powerhouse. The S58 engine, which is basically a souped-up version of the B58, is a 3-liter twin-turbo inline-six that produces insane numbers. The standard M3 gets 473 horses, and the competition model bumps that up to 503. The competition can also be had with xDrive, which for the first time in an M3 is all-wheel drive. With the xDrive, the competition can sprint to 60 miles per hour in just 3.4 seconds. That's supercar territory, and it's absolutely mind-blowing.